It takes a lot of money to be involved in politics these days. It seems like there's a lot of money coming into politics. How do you feel about the infusion of all this money into our political system these days?
It's destroying the citizen government. Yeah, our Congress is bought and paid for. I'm going to run, this campaign, I'm going to spend less than $5,000 on this campaign. These kind of appearances are crucial to what I'm trying to do. If I can get, in 2016 we got 3.7% of the vote. If we could double that and get 6 or 7% of the vote in District 5 on a platform of ending this insane war, that would be a message that the two ruling parties would have to pay attention to.
And I want to have a referendum in the voters pamphlet so the voters of Oregon get to vote on this goddamn war in Afghanistan. 16th year at war with the planet's 5th poorest country. This is a resource war. We are in Afghanistan because of the $60 billion a year heroin market.
And it just goes on, and we don't even talk about it. This is the opium planting in Afghanistan. This is why we're in Afghanistan. This week, I think on the 6th or the 8th, we're going to begin our 18th year at war with the planet's 5th poorest country. How the hell can we be at war with this country? They don't have uniforms. They don't have logistics. They don't have command structure. They don't have trucks. Right after the election, this was 2016, they plant this crop in November and harvest in April. It went up 20% right after the United States 2016 election. Cocaine has gone from 96,000 hectares in Colombia to 172,000 hectares in Colombia. We have a heroin epidemic. I don't know what you guys have over here. Lincoln City, they have 190 kids homeless in Lincoln City. We have 1,100 kids homeless in Salem. 1,100 kids sleep it out. Direct consequence. These parents cannot afford, the heroin this morning is selling for $100 a point. That's a gram. Selling for $100 a gram. And a gram, when you just start, a gram will last you about 3 days. By the time you've been at it for a couple of years, you need 3 grams a day. So these parents are, yeah. We've got to talk about this. We've got to talk about this. Less than a fifth of the District 5 votes are going to decide this election. So your vote is very, very powerful.
93% of the planet's opium is grown in Afghanistan. We have a heroin epidemic in this state. It's not talked about, it's underground, so we don't hear about it. But it's a direct result of our involvement in Afghanistan.
Iraq's oil is worth $100 billion a year. Well, the poppy crop, the opium, converted to heroin, at $60 billion a year, it doesn't have nearly the overhead as the oil. You don't need tankers to get it to the streets of Chicago or the streets of Salem. We have 950 kids homeless in Salem, Kaiser, 24J. Direct result of the heroin epidemic. All over this country. All over the country. And the media, the DEA say it's because of the misprescriptions. Doctors misprescribing, prescription mistakes. These 13-year-old kids are getting the pills out of mom's cabinet. That is horseshit. That is a deflection. It's a DEA deflection. They don't want people to notice the 224,000 hectares of heroin planted in Afghanistan. A hectare is 2.4 acres.
How would you describe our treatment of our veterans? Do you think they're being adequately taken care of?
It's deplorable. Those kids are cannon fodder. They come back from these they come back from these unconscionable wars. 90% of the casualties in these wars are innocent people, women and children. And these kids come back, they've shot at, you know, the Pentagon calls are what they call these asymmetrical warfare. That means the enemy does not have tanks or planes or ships or uniforms or logistics or a command structure. So how do you fight a war like that? You kick in doors, you shoot at. I had a kid applied for an apartment, 22 years old, he's 100% permanently disabled, $2,800 a month. I said, well, what's your disability? He says, I don't sleep. I said, well, how long you don't sleep? No, I have nightmares. I see body parts flying in the air. His job was to shoot a 50 caliber machine gun from the back of a truck. He lasted 6 months after I met him. He committed suicide. 22 suicides every day. 22 suicides every day from veterans. And what do they get from the Veterans Administration? They get a backpack full of medication and are told to go find here's $2,800 a month. That's what we're doing to these soldiers. We're training them to kill people, innocent people, and then they're abandoned.
We want to break up the major media monopoly that was created in the Clinton administration. We want to end all foreign military aid. You know, half of our military aid goes to Israel. It's $8 billion a year, $4 billion of it goes to Israel. What the hell is going on there? They are the 6th largest weapon producer on the planet. Why are we giving them $4 billion?
Okay, before we get to the war, what's your stand on Citizens United and the role of corporations in our governmental process?
We've got to end that. We've got to end that. You know, how much money comes from the citizens to the candidates? Practically, I mean, a tiny, tiny percentage. Most campaigns are funded by wealthy donors. And we've got to do something about it.
Would you support legislation that would take away personhood status from corporations?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That's crucial.
2 days after Japan's surrender, Fletcher Prouty was standing with the port commander on Okinawa. Okinawa was 4 square miles, piled 20 feet high with war material for the invasion of Japan. Fletcher asked the port commander, what are you going to do with all this material? And he says, we just got the orders this morning. Half of this stuff is going to Seoul, Korea. The other half of this stuff is going to Hanoi, Vietnam. And Fletcher said, what the heck? Why is this stuff going to those 2 places? He says, I have no idea, but we're going to start loading the ships this afternoon.
A major part of what Congress is responsible for is the budget, and a large part of the budget goes to the military. Do you see that being misdirected?
You know, if you talk to a congressman, they'll all say, oh yes, we should bring our troops home. But when it comes to a vote for military expenditures in Afghanistan or Syria or Libya or Somalia or Yemen, they vote yes. They vote yes. And we don't hold them accountable because we can hold them accountable. 96% of our Congress is going to be returned to the Congress. Why? Are we returning them to the Congress, or is money returning them to the Congress? It's money. It's money. We've got to change this.
The bombing is 1/3 under Trump that it was under the last 3 years of Obama. 1/3. I support that part of his bombing, yeah. The bombing in the Middle East. 1/3 of what it was the last 3 years under Obama.
Every politician this election season is going to be talking about jobs. Now here are some numbers about jobs. For every $1 billion the federal government spends, for every billion they spend on military, 11,200 jobs. For every billion they spend on environment and clean energy, 16,800 jobs. For every billion they spend on health, 17,200 jobs. For every billion they spend on education, 26,700 jobs. So they're going to talk about jobs. Let's talk about create real jobs. These three areas are investments. The military defense spending, we don't get a dime back. All that does is make defense contractors wealthy. Halliburton, General Dynamics, and the rest of them. It is, and they own the government. They own the media. This triumvirate of the corporations, the government, the media. They're just the American taxpayer is being ripped off and raped. We're killing people for money. Anyway, I want to have a referendum in the budget when people can look at their voters' pamphlet statement and go, well, here's a guy who addresses the war.